In a tweet earlier, DA leader John Steenhuisen says no agreement has been reached yet around the budget. Well, let's speak now to Section27's Matshidiso to unpack some of the issues here. I don't know, Matshidiso, a very good afternoon to you. I don't know what you make of this. You had the presidency issuing a statement saying we've reached an agreement, we have options that the minister is going to look at. Then you have the other government of unity partner in the form of the DA saying, no, we haven't reached any agreement. What do you make of the toing and froing?
Yeah. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having us once again. And yes, you're right. It is what an interesting time we are in regarding our political economy. Now more than ever has the budget just been thrust into the spotlight, and it's no longer just a conversation where economists and bankers are speaking, but now it is, there's finally a conversation around how the budget impacts the everyday person and how it affects us as people in this country. And I think that it is quite an impasse. We hope that regardless of that, whatever discussions are being made, whatever messages that, the contradictory messages that are being sent, but that they can come to an agreement, but not just an agreement for agreement's sake, but an agreement that really foregrounds what's best in the best interest of the people in this country, keeping in mind that so many people in this country are living in poverty and are struggling to get by, especially with this cost of living crisis that we find ourselves in.
What is your sense, though? Do you get a sense that the conversations are meaningful and they will deliver perhaps something we haven't experienced in fact over the past 30 or so years? Or do you think that it may just be these government of national unity partners just trying to get an agreement that will ensure that a budget is passed come the 12th of March?
Sure. So I am very hopeful. I'm quite optimistic by nature, and just hopeful that regardless, we find ourselves in quite a storm right now, and that there can be a moment where members of parliament and members of this government can take heed of the concerns that the people in this country are facing and realize, the initial budget that was passed, that increase of 2 percentage points of VAT increase was really, just didn't reflect public engagement or participation in shaping a budget by the people for the people, but that they can learn their lesson and come to a point of agreement, not just, again, not for agreement's sake, but in the interest of the people in this country. I think that it would be really disappointing if there was stubbornness or an inability to get to pass over the line so that we can table a budget, because already we're in unprecedented times. Can you imagine the impact that it would have in terms of our economy and how investors may perceive our government and our leadership, but also more importantly, how the people in this country would view our leadership? Will people in this country show confidence in the leadership that we have, in their ability to table a budget that's not the status quo, but really a budget that works for the people in this country?
Say the finance minister makes an about turn on the 2% 2 percentage point increase in VAT, which you argue as part of the Budget Justice Coalition is regressive and unjust. Does that mean that they will have dealt with the issues that you're concerned about?
Yeah, unfortunately, National Treasury has been tabling budgets for the past, I would say a decade, that have been actually quite regressive by nature. So civil society and human rights organizations have criticized previous budgets for years for being regressive, because they've been characterized by budget cuts towards important areas like education, health, and social protection. And of course, criticism from other members, including us, the civil society, but just generally that these budgets don't reflect a pro-growth perspective, which hampers on realization of rights, because it means that our debt, interest on debt is much, our debt is more expensive than ever before. And then also we're not creating jobs that we should be. And so the tax base or the tax burden is felt more disproportionately than would be if, we had a budget that really served the people and tackled the problems that we have of unemployment and of poverty. And so this is a long time coming, even though right now it does seem quite unprecedented. But really, I do think that as civil society, we have been calling for really a budget that serves the people. And if the government just focuses their attention only on the VAT increase and fails to recognize that, it's not just the revenue that we're looking at that should be serving the people, but it's also how we spend the money. Will there be investment, for example, in ensuring that our states, in building our state's capacity to actually spend money? Because there have been reports, especially in education and health, that have reflected a failure by some provinces to actually spend money. I saw last year there was a target for 30 schools, new schools to be built, and only one was built. And that kind of performance is really devastating. And it's just a disservice to the people of this country, because really, who really do deserve better. And so we're just hoping that within this context and with, this just seems like a new beginning and that there is a storm, but then, we can chart a way forward and we can use our fiscal policy and our budget to really heal the issues in our country rather than exacerbate them. But in order to do so, they would have to move away from an anti-poor budget that they had been passing for the past decade, that had been constraining on the rights of people in this country through fewer available staffing shortages within clinics, in schools. There was overcrowding. We need something different. We need something better, and we're hoping that with this, that there's a tussle regarding our fiscal policy, but it can be a tussle, a step forward for human rights realization in our country.
Yes, you are hopeful, but there is no evidence yet that there's nothing to suggest that the technocrats who have been working on the budget for all these years are going to change anytime soon. Even the events of the other week when the budget wasn't, tabled, there's nothing, to suggest that it's going to make them change or mend their ways, so to speak.
Yes, and that is quite unfortunate. You are right that we're not seeing any evidence. It does come across, and I think the nature of budgets and I guess the culture around it is that it takes long for progress to be made. But we are in unprecedented times. We're seeing the geopolitical context. We're seeing in America with the executive orders that have just been, overnight have shifted or changed the political landscape. And I think right now we are also learning about what the budget can do. And if technocrats and people are stuck in their old ways of doing things, they might actually table a budget that's not relevant to the current context and the future that we're trying to build as a country. So we really hope that, yes, there's been a change in our government and there's more contestation around the budget, but rather that the technocrats and the people who are held to make those decisions are foregrounding that and opening their eyes and seeing that, the world is looking different and is ever changing. How can we ensure that we pass a budget that really works for our people, regardless of the context that we're in, and one that is just relevant to the lived experience of the people in this country? Can they finally listen to the people of our country and what the lived experience really is?
Let's leave it there for now and for today. Matshidiso, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.